Ladies and gentlemen, let us all rise for the arrival of the Honorable Senate President and the Senators of the Republic of the Philippines.
Thank you. The 31st session of the Senate in the first regular session of the 18th Congress is hereby called to order. Let us pause for a minute of silent prayer. May we continue with the prayer with Senator Bongo to lead the chamber.
O Lord, the source of life and peace, bless us we gather here today to resume the session of the 18th Congress. May you grant us the strength to serve the Filipino people to the utmost of our abilities and to give us the resolve to work without counting the hardships and the cost, because we know that by serving the people, we are glorifying you, Lord. We also pray for courage and persistence to succeed in our fight against the societal ills of illegal drugs, criminality, and corruption. As we seek your blessing today in this august chamber, we also fervently pray that you protect and bless our brothers and sisters in Mindanao who were recently devastated by natural calamities. Bless them, O Lord, that they may be relieved from the trauma, from their suffering and difficulties. As one nation, may you give us the strength to work together to overcome the challenges we face in rebuilding what has been destroyed. May you unceasingly guide and inspire this honorable body and its members, Lord. Celebrating 103 years is a feat which the Senate truly could not have achieved without your guidance. As this we humbly ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. The Senate choir will lead us in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 20 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader. The chair stands corrected. We are 21. There are 21 senators present.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pleasant, good Monday to everyone. It's the start of our session for the last quarter of this year. Mr. President, I move, with the permission of the body, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journals of the 29th session Tuesday, October 1, and 30th session Wednesday, October 2, and consider them as approved. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, we dispense with the reading and the journals are hereby approved.
Mr. President, before we take up a few items on our agenda, may we just recognize several guests today. We have with us in the gallery the guest of our Sergeant at Arms. That's here from the class Di Malupig, class 91 PMA ladies are with us today. We have also with us the GSIS board member General Alan Luga and his staff, together with several mayors, Mayor Manuel Saladaga of Mahayag, Zamboanga del Sur, Mayor Midpantao Mitimbang of Guindulungan, Maguindanao, and Vice Mayor Lester Espina from Mahayag, Zamboanga del Sur are here with us today in the gallery, Mr. President.
We welcome all our guests to the Senate. Thank you.
Mr. President, we have one measure for third reading, and we'll defer reading of the journal for the moment. Today is a special day, Mr. President, because we would like to, in deference to the Honorable former Senate President Nene Pimentel, we will have quite a short session today. But before we adjourn session, in honor of our former Senate President, may just move for approval on third reading, Senate Joint Resolution number 8, Mr. President. May I ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure, Mr. President? With the permission of the body.
The Secretary will read the title of the measure. There is a motion to approve on third reading. You may proceed with the roll call vote after the reading of the title.
Joint Resolution authorizing the use of the rice subsidy as provided under the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program 4Ps in the General Appropriations Act GAA of 2019 for the purchase of palay from farmers, mandating for the purpose the Department of Social Welfare and Development, DSWD, in coordination with the National Food Authority, NFA, to buy palay from the local farmers from the provinces of Pangasinan, Ilocos Norte, Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, Mindoro Oriental, Mindoro Occidental, Tarlac, Nueva Ecija, Zamboanga del Sur, and Iloilo, and distribute rice subsidy in the form of actual rice instead of cash assistance to the qualified beneficiaries. Roll call vote, the Honorable Senators Angara, Binay, Cayetano, De Lima, De La Rosa, Drilon, Gatchalian, Go, Gordon, Ontiveros, Lacson, Lapid, Marcos, Pacquiao, Pangilinan, Pimentel, Poe, Recto, Revilla, Tolentino, Villanueva, Villar, Zubiri, Senate President Soto III.
With 21 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention, Senate Joint Resolution number 8 is hereby approved on third reading.
Mr. President, may we recognize the distinguished Minority Floor Leader, Senator Franklin Dillon, to explain his vote.
The Minority Leader, Senator Frank Melon, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I voted for the approval of the Senate Joint Resolution number 8. This authorizes the DSWD and the NFA to use the rice subsidy under General Appropriations Act of 2019 to buy palay from our local farmers. I voted yes in order to help our farmers cope with the effects of the rice tarification law, which lifted the quantitative import restriction on rice. May I, however, Mr. President, state for the record my serious concern that the application, validity, and constitutionality of this measure and our future joint resolutions might be challenged in court. Last October 9, In the case of Ang NAR's party list versus executive secretary, GR number 215746, the Supreme Court ruled that a joint resolution, being a mere resolution, cannot amend or repeal a prior law. While I respect the decision of the Supreme Court, Mr. President, I disagree with the ruling. A joint resolution is not a mere resolution as stated by the Supreme Court. It has the force and effect of law once approved. Based on our rules and established precedents, the procedure for the passage of a joint resolution is identical to that of a bill. It requires 3 readings on separate days, unless certified as urgent, the approval of both chambers of Congress, the signature of the President, and publication in the official gazette and or in a newspaper of general circulation. A joint resolution, Mr. President, is an act of Congress of limited application, which becomes functus officio once the purpose of its enactment is fulfilled. Therefore, once the purpose of the joint resolution is achieved, it ceases to become part of our statute books. Such is the nature of a joint resolution, but it does not lose its character as a law. Nonetheless, the Supreme Court in its decision in Ang NARS involves an interpretation of the Constitution and should therefore be adhered to until and unless subsequently modified or reversed by the High Court. In the Ang NARS case, Mr. President, there was no separate law providing for the budget for the salary of the concerned nurses. Congress cannot be compelled to enact a law providing for such budget, and the national government cannot be forced to implement the same without appropriate funding from Congress. On the contrary, the Rice Subsidy Fund, which is the subject of this joint resolution, expressly allocated in the 2019 is expressly allocated for in the 2019 General Appropriations Act. And this joint resolution authorizes the use of the rice subsidy under the 4Ps in the 2019 GAA for the purpose of palay directly purchase of palay directly from local farmers. It also authorizes the distribution of rice subsidy in the form of actual rice instead of cash. In effect, Mr. President, this joint resolution entails a realignment of the budget and can be implemented upon approval. Having said that, Mr. President, while we disagree with the ruling that a joint resolution cannot amend a law, we cannot continuously disregard this Supreme Court decision. We need to exercise, therefore, Mr. President, extreme caution in adopting a similar resolution in the 2020 General Appropriations Act, particularly with regard to the purchase of palay directly from our farmers. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing this representation to place of record his explanation of his affirmative vote for this resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
All
Thank you,
right,
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, we move to another important item in the agenda, Mr. President. With the permission of the body, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 168. So move, Mr. President.
Before we act on the motion, the Chair requests a minute suspension. Session is resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr.
Will you
President,
reiterate your motion,
Yes,
Majority Leader?
I'll just repeat my motion, Mr. President. I move, with the permission of the body, to consider proposed Senate Resolution number 168. I so
Any
move.
objection? Hearing none, consideration of the resolution is in order.
May we ask the Secretary to read the title of the measure, Mr.
The
President?
Secretary will read the title of the measure without prejudice to inserting into the records the text of the said resolution.
Resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate on the death of the Honorable Aquilino Nene Kilinging Pimentel Jr., former Senate President and father of the Local Government Code.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
you being the principal sponsor of this measure, may I request that we make all members of the Senate as co-sponsor of the measure?
Yes, as manifested earlier, this resolution number 168 is introduced by the presiding officer and all the members of the Senate.
Yes, Mr. President, we express once again our deepest condolences to the family of our dear colleague, Senator Coco Pimentel. We had a very wonderful and heartwarming necrological services here last Wednesday, and it's truly a loss for our country
Yes.
to lose a man such as Senator Nene Pimentel, Mr. President. I just wanted to say that again for the record.
Indeed, and we again express our condolences to the family of Senator Nene Pimentel.
With that, Mr. President, no further amendments, no interpellations as well. I move that we approve and adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 168.
Hearing no objection, PS Resolution number 168 is hereby approved.
Yes, we will call her. May we recognize Senator Coco Pimentel, sir.
Senator Coco Pimentel is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the family, the Pimentel family, and all of his relatives, friends, and supporters, all I can say is thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, and our condolences.
He will be sorely
again.
missed, Mr. President, our dear
Yes.
former Senate President.
Yeah, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President.
Well, usually in deference to the death of a former colleague, we adjourn.
Yes, Mr. President.
But in this case, because the necrological services was already done here, and that Senate President Nene Pimentel has been interred, still it is fitting to perhaps cut short the session
Adjourn
for
early,
today.
Mr. President. Yes.
Adjourn early today. But
Yes.
then again, there are requests from the members of the Senate that we adjourn into a caucus, an all-senator caucus, to tackle the issue on the budget.
Yes, Mr. President. I'll make the necessary motion, Mr. President,
All
with
right.
your permission.
Right.
As our parliamentary tradition, in deference to our former Senate President and colleague, and father of our colleague, Senator Coco Pimentel, Senator Nene Pimentel rather, who passed away recently, we will adjourn session early today in honor of our dear former Senate President. But we'd like to also remind everyone that we will have an all-senators caucus at the lounge so that we can discuss several topics, but primarily the budget, Mr. President. With that, I move we adjourn session until 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, November 5, 2019. I so move.
Any objection? Hearing none, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, November 5, 2019.